One way at getting at the so-called non-resistant person's resistance might be to ask something like, "So tell me, why don't you believe in Christianity?" According to John Schellenberg, in his influential book Divine Hiddenness and Human Reason, he contends that if an all-powerful God existed, then every reasonable, non-resistant person would come to believe. As you can see, he claims there are those who are non-resistant and don't believe because there hasn't been enough evidence to convince the non-resistant skeptic. So according to Schellenberg, we've got a cinder problem. Let's consider a syllogism of Schellenberg's argument as found in the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy. Premise 1. There are people who are capable of relating personally to God, but who, through no fault of their own, fail to believe. Premise 2. If there is a personal God who is unsurpassably great, then there are no such people. Conclusion. So, there is no such God. How might we respond? Personally, I think the problem is with premise 1, through no fault of their own. This is problematic and assumes too much. We can't assume the person who perceives himself as non-resistant is so entirely objective as to not be blinded by other things which might be blocking his ability to capture a clear peak of God as one who exists. Among the things blocking us can be presuppositions, unresolved traumas, disjointed rational conclusions, and all sorts of other influences. There can be a combination of rational, relational, social, emotional, and volitional conditions that impair one's ability to be fruitfully objective. We cannot underestimate the effects of the fall and how it limits our capacity to remain free of bias. No one is fully objective east of Eden. Besides this, I think those who claim that they are truly non-resistant need to be honest about themselves and ask, am I really non-resistant to Christianity? There are probably some features of Christianity that don't sit well with such non-resistant people, which undoubtedly is skewing their sight. Things like sin, hell, judgment, what the Bible has to say about sex. One way at getting at the so-called non-resistant person's resistance might be to ask something like, "So tell me, why don't you believe in Christianity?" At that point, we might get a brief download on some of their objections, and guess what? On hearing these, we will have entered the detection zone, as those objections have just revealed where their resistance lies. As I conclude, here is some advice I'd like to offer to the person who thinks they are non-resistant and yet wants to encounter God. First, don't underestimate our ability to be skewed about our own biases. Second, ask yourself what you are looking for. Are you being realistic, like expecting God to do something for you that He doesn't do for others who believe? Have you set the bar so high so as to ensure that you'll always have a finger to point at the sender? Third, do you think it's realistic for you to be able to set the terms for how God should make Himself known to you? Fourth, ask yourself, what are your objections to Christianity? As mentioned, it's there you might detect where your resistance has escaped you. Fifth, don't quit seeking. Humbly ask God to help you even with your unbelief. Finally, I'd say, while you may not have the experiential sense of contact that you'd like, don't underestimate the evidence Christianity has on offer. Just because God's presence isn't obvious doesn't mean His presence is non-existent. The gospel is a powerful case for God's love, demonstrating the distance He came in the incarnation to reconcile us to God. The evidence of His death and resurrection can't be ignored. The arguments against the resurrection are so weak that one is more rational to believe in the evidence for the resurrection than to believe in the evidence against it. All that to say, it may mean trusting in the evidence of the resurrection and following Him, even if it means you are apparently bereft of the kind of experiential contact with God you are in search of. In time, through faith and obedience, I believe if you truly seek Him, you shall find Him. For again, no receiver will be without excuse. For more information on my ministry, be sure to subscribe to my social media handles. And for more videos from Cross-Examine and their instructors, visit crossexamine.org.